Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Startup Change Leaders regular monthly and weekly event, not monthly. We are meeting every day, every Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Today we have Mr. Atul Gupta, who will be sharing his thoughts with all of you. And the topic of the day is total cost management, which is a very important aspect, how a startup should do the total management of its cost. And Atul is a chartered accountant, and we all know him. So, Atul, without further ado, may I request you to please address the audience today?
Yeah, sure. So, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So, my voice is audible?
Yes, very clear.
Okay. So, today's topic I have chosen is just to speak on the costing aspect, how important is the cost element in the business, and how the various maturity levels of cost, they need to be embedded into the organizations right from the starting point when the startup is having the early stages kind of a journey, and then going into the growth stage and all that, because a journey which starts with certain concepts which are well understood is the journey which is said to be said to live with the company. Those concepts, they would live with the company for the life cycle of the company. We have been talking about finance, we have been talking about the ideas, we have been talking about the technology, we have been talking about the market and all that. But one of the key things which has been less so spoken about in the startup world of other in many organizations is the cost. How do you define the cost, and how do you essentially see that the maturity levels of cost identifications, they are very well identified, and then the various maturity models, they then need to be implemented in the organization. So there are those kind of critical things which in any case is needed in any organization. So let me just open one slide, and I would like to just 1 second. Is this slide visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I would like to start from this one-page slide before I move to my formal presentation. So if you look at this slide, this basically defines a lot of things. So if you read the top line, this is basically opportunities for improvement. So how do you identify the opportunities for improvement in any business? Is that the cost need to be optimized, or the cost need to be reduced, and then there are certain principles on which this cost need to be optimized. So it is so-called the cost reduction principle. Now, if you look at the left side of this page, there are two graphs, two bar charts, so which talks about the traditional thinking. And then on the right side, there are two bar charts which talks about the lean thinking. So the traditional thinking till about 30, 35 years back has been that we would have certain price which in any case would be available in the marketplace. We were taking for granted, or the businesses were taking it for granted. So they said that they would have, there is a blue color bar graph, first bar graph, in which they said that, okay, this is the cost, and then this is the profit, and this is the total price. Now, if cost of a, let us say, a soft drink or Coke, or for that matter, any soft drink was X, and the company would sell it for X plus Y, then the differential between X and Y would be the profit for the organization. And as per their traditional thinking, the business houses, they used to think that if the profit is to be increased, then they would always say that cost is something which is constant. Therefore, the price need to be increased in the marketplace. And they said that, okay, if the profit is X and if the profit is to be increased by 10 percentage points, then the price of the product need to be increased. Yeah. We have all seen this kind of journeys 30, 35 years back in India, and worldwide this has been in place because multinational companies, they operate in many countries. So they say that our cost is something which is sacrosanct. And if the price is something which is there in the marketplace, this is the X profit. And if the board of the directors or the management thinks that profits to be increased, then they used to increase the price of the product. So it was true for most of the FMCG companies or many consumer durable companies, or all those companies which used to take the customer for granted, and the price at which they would sell the product, that they used to take it for granted. But now, in the last 30 years, we have seen in India that no longer the marketplace is such where price is sacrosanct. We have seen the lean thinking processes which have started getting practiced in the marketplace, or for that matter in the business houses. We have seen that this lean thinking is the one which have been prevalent in the worldwide space, be it advanced countries. But then essentially in India, this lean thinking has come from the Japanese business management. So those are their principles. So they said that you have to have a lean thinking processes in the organization. And as a result of that, they said that if the cost is constant, but the price is something which is to be determined on the marketplace. So that means the differential between the price of the marketplace and the cost would be the profit. And if you need to maintain same profit, then you have to keep your cost under check. And if you want to increase the profitability, in that case, you need to reduce your cost. It's not that the price of the product in the marketplace, you would have an opportunity that would increase. The competition has increased manifold. Therefore, you do not have a marketplace in which the price of the product would increase. So the extreme right bar chart clearly defines that in the lean thinking process, now market price is something which is already determined. So market price minus the cost would be your profit. And if you have to increase your profit, then it is very obvious that you need to optimize your costs. So I hope I'm clear so far as this lean thinking process on the cost management side is concerned.
Yes.
So just to give you some examples that we have seen in the Indian market. Let's talk about the evolution of the mobility, the mobiles, or the pricing of the product, or the usage call charges. We saw that in India, in any case, got the first liberalization reforms way back in 1991. That was a good about 31 years back. And then we started seeing a couple of years later that the companies started participating into the auction of the various circles, getting access to the technologies and all that, and they would launch their product on the mobile mobility side. So the voice-based services and all those things, they were started getting. Now, at this point in time, we see that there's a lot of consolidation of the players which were there in the marketplace that has already taken place. Now, essentially, there are three players: Reliance, or for that, Reliance Jio, and then Bharti, and then Vodafone. So, Mukesh and his father, Dhirubhai Ambani, is on recording saying this thing, that the mobility business in India, or the mobile services businesses in India, would be successful when the price of the call, he said, good about 30 years back. He said that the price of the cost of a domestic call, if that is to come below the cost of a postcard, then only he said that this business would be, I would say that this business is successful. So in good old days, we all remember 35 years back, the cost of the postcard was 15 paisa. So if one needed to communicate to a relative, which is, yeah. So at that time, the cost of the postcard used to be, they used to communicate through writing through the postcard and all that. But then when there was an
I sorry to interrupt, Atul. I request everyone to please unmute. Yeah, please. Atul.
Yeah, thanks. So we have seen that how the prices of the call over a period of time, we used to be 10 rupees, 15 rupees per call, or all that, good about 30 years back when the mobility services were launched in India. And now at this point in time, the price of the call has come on fraction of paisa, yeah, or they are free. So stuff like that. So that means the customer is the king, because the customer has got so many of the choices. The competition has increased. The number of players in the marketplace, they have multifold increased, and the competition from outside India has also come in, and they have set the basis here in India. Therefore, the customer decides the price, and it's the price which is not in your control. Therefore, if you want to sustain your business, you have not only to see that how you are able to optimize on your cost, but you have to find ways how you are able to reduce your cost so that your profit remains intact. And if the market would determine that the price of your product is to be reduced, if the competition is such, if the demand has gone down, then you need to bring down the prices of your product in the marketplace. So in that case, your profit would come under a lot of challenge. So for that purposes, if you need to maintain your profitability, then there is no choice except to reduce your cost of doing the business, or the cost of doing the, you have to define your cost leadership. So from that context, I think it's very, very important that we as a budding entrepreneurs, or for that matter, in later stages of our business, need to imbibe in our thinking processes that how important it is to understand the cost and the various elements of the cost, and how important it is that we bring these cost reduction principles into play, so that this becomes the DNA of the organization, and the businesses are able to sustain for the years to come through the life cycle of the company. So I would stop this slide one pager, and now I would open my main presentation. Just a second. So, Rajiv, can you see this slide? Hello, Rajiv, you're on mute.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So, just in continuity of the previous slide, what we saw there is that we all now understand that cost is something which need to be understood in detail. So there are various organizations in India which have spoken a lot about the need for bringing in the best governances, or the best business practices which are laid out and which need to be implemented in the organization. So CII, FICCI, or SOCHM, Chambers of Commerce, so there are many consultancy firms who are in the marketplace. Just 1 second here. Yeah, please. So I had the opportunity to work closely with the CII team about, say, 8 years, 10 years back. And this is the piece of paper which I have got from CII at that time. And we, in one of the companies in which there was a private equity inducted by a foreign enterprise, we in that organization wanted to attain certain kind of cost leaderships, wanted to understand the cost in detail, and wanted to get into a ecosystem in which we said that, okay, we would like to become the market leaders, not only in India, but also outside India in the countries in which we used to operate. But we said that it would be relevant to look at that how we can define these cost processes and cost optimization processes and all that. So this is the program which we then undertook in consultation with CII in the organization. Now, what CII at that point in time clearly described was that there is a framework, and any journey in the organizations for any project starts with basically a piece of paper. So they said, okay, this is the piece of paper. This is this slide basically talks about that piece of paper only. So they said that this piece of paper essentially is a framework which need to be put in place in the organization. And this is then divided into 9 parts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And they said that each of this serial number or each of these 9 points would be assigned certain score, such that the total score of these 9 points put together would be 1000, out of which there is a weightage given for each of this subscore or the element. And this is the one which the weight is assigned in discussion with the organization or in discussion with the industry in which you are operating. So I will talk about the first one, formulation of business strategy and integration of the TCM in the business strategy. So this is the first and the foremost. They said that if you want to implement the best cost maturity models or best practices in the organization, so you have to start right from the business strategy. And at that stage only, you have to bring about those thoughts into your business strategy, that all the costs, total cost management, best practices models, they would become an integral part of your business strategy. And they assigned it a score of 110. So I would elaborate on each of these points in my subsequent slide, but I would just like to take 2 minutes to just read out these 9 points. They're equally important for us to understand. It's not enough just to look at this slide, but understand what they talk about. So first part is on the business strategy. Second is the risk management. Now on the risk management, we all know that the world is no longer the same which used to be, say, 10 years back. And 10 years back, the world was not the same as it used to be 20 years back. So it is a constantly changing world. Today's world in which we are living is a world in which there is a Cold War. There is a trading blocks which is getting developed. There is a Ukraine-Russia kind of a war which is going on, which is affecting Europe in a big way. And then there is a lot of geopolitical upheavals which is taking place in other parts of the world, be it China, Taiwan, or for that matter, in many other parts of the world. So when the trading block starts happening in this way, then the currencies, they start taking different shapes. So we have seen 1 year back, if the rupee dollar value, the rupee was against dollar, the rupee was at 72. Today it is already 80. Similarly, in Europe, we saw that if US dollar against Europe was 1.3. So today the euro has already gone deep down. So the value of euro, if it used to be say 95 rupees against a dollar, now it is below 80. So the strength of the dollar is clearly there to be seen. When these kind of risks starts taking place in the marketplace, then it is not only relevant but also very, very critical and important to understand that how this is going to play out in the business in which you are, and you have to align your whole journey of the organization or the business of the organization. You have to revisit your business strategies and all that, and have to take those risks which have emerged now onto your current business strategy and accordingly align that. So, uh, and if you have to, I would just give you, I would just elaborate you further. For example, today, let us say, if we are manufacturing let us say, a refrigerator. So the cost of manufacturing a refrigerator, let us say by LG or by any other multinational companies, Voltas or Tatas, let us say if it is standard refrigeration of 200 liter, if they are able to produce it at 12,000 rupees or say 10,000 rupees and they sell it in the marketplace, let us say 20% margin, that is at 12,000. Tomorrow, it may so happen that the cost of doing this business in Europe for similar kind of product may go down to 8,000 rupees because the currency there has got a different kind of connotations. So the supply chain would obviously get shifted to those countries where the currencies would have disrupted the value of the business. So it is from that perspective that I'm saying that risk management is very, very important. Therefore, as a finance person in any organization, this is one of the most important things. So they said in the cost identification and the cost what you call maturity journey of the organization or the total cost management of the organization, it is very important to understand this risk part, and they assign 100 score on this. Then next point is the product strategy. What is the mapping of the strategy on the product and the customer segments to whom you are catering to? So you may be catering to the OEMs, or you may be catering to the after sale. You may be catering to the, it may be a B2B model, or it may be a B2C model, or it may be a model which is serving on the export side. So there are a lot of things which need to be understood in that context. So that is spelled out in my subsequent slides. Then new product design. Yeah, technology is something which is playing a very important role. So disruption, the only constant which is there in the businesses in the last 15, 20 years is that manufacturing is not a challenge. Manufacturing in any case has to be done. The key thing is that what is the key differentiator in the technology? What is it which you are basically defining in the design? How differentiated is your product? And what is the new product design which you are bringing in so that you are able to differentiate your product vis-a-vis the one which exists in the marketplace. So next thing is that sustainability. So we all know that today's world is, we all are talking about the climate change. We have seen what has happened in terms of the lack of rain or the droughts which is taking place in China or in many parts of Europe, or for that matter in USA, and India is no exception. Therefore, the thoughts on the sustainability aspect of the business is equally important, that you no longer would have access to the same kind of raw material, because the raw materials which you may be procuring may be consuming a lot of energy and draining out a lot of natural resources. Therefore, you need to look at the alternatives. So sustainability of the business and what it would have an effect on your organization from a cost point of view, that is something which is very, very important. Similarly, moving into the sixth point, operational improvements. So operational improvements aspect is the one which is, because ultimately, if your strategy part is clear and your risk mapping is clear, then it is basically the chief operating officers of the organization who have to manufacture the product or provide their services at that cost point at which the market would be able to accept. Therefore, the operational improvements, the OEE efficiencies, the quality management, all those things, they come under this. And then comes the cost accounting processes, the maturity of the cost accounting processes, whether you are able to identify those costs and whether you got the matured models of costing. I mean, SAP, we all talk about the CO modules and all that, they should be in place. Cost centers, they need to be in place. And then integrating the whole costing and all that in the way in which it is desirable. So it is, costing is no longer only a function which is limited to the finance, which is limited to the finance and accounts department. It is a function which is integrated across all the departments of the organization, be it the production or the quality or the NPD, the R&D, or for that matter, the purchase or the marketing. So it is a gigantic, it's an exercise. The cost, TCM, as we call it, total cost management, is an exercise which is undertaken by all the big organizations. You talk about Tata, you talk about Birla, you talk about Reliance, you talk about many, or any company. Every company, either they have got the in-house cost management systems in place, or they have taken the right kind of consultants on board. And these consultants, they take 4 to 5 years before they can say that the cost, the right kind of cost models, they are there and they are in place. So having talked about these things, let me just move on to the next slide. So this is just what I was saying in my previous analysis, that there are different levels. So in the year one, when you initiate on this, you will be able to measure your cost. So level one is the first or the initial level of the TCM journey which you would have in the organization. Level 2, then level 3, level 4, level 5. So you can be said to be at the world class when you say that you have reached to the level 5. So level 5 is generally reached in the 4th or 5th year of the start of this exercise. So now let me spend 5-10 minutes on this one. So in the previous slide, or the previous slide, we did talk about the 9 key elements of the TCM. So the first one is the formulation of business strategy and integration of TCM. Now this is the one who is responsible. So we in the organization need to define that who is the owner of the business strategy and the formulation of business strategy, and then integration of the TCM into the business strategy. So there has to be ownership of that. So it cannot be that all these things, they are owned by one person or no person. So there is a name which is assigned to each of these item. So on the business strategy and integration of the TCM side, the CEO of the organization or the Karta Dharta of the organization, that is the one who is responsible. So it is very clear. Risk management and cost information obviously lies with the CFO, and CFO in any case is expected to work closely with the CEO so that there are all those kind of risks which are duly mapped, and the cost is accordingly populated, and the cost elements are identified so that as the business progresses, then the risks are mitigated, and then the company is able to move ahead and achieve its long-term objectives. The third point, of course, the product costing with the customer. So since it would have an interface with the marketplace, so marketing department is the leader or the owner of this particular function. So when this exercise by the CAI was done, so they said that, okay, there are a list of questions which will be thrown open to various these owners, and they are expected to come out with the answers to those questions, or they have to reply to those questions. And one by one, they started sending this to the CEO or the CFO or the marketing guy and all these guys. And there was a lot of time which was spent in order to understand that what do they think about their function and what is their first preliminary answer to the question which they proposed, just to get an understanding whether the organization is fully prepared to take up this journey. You know, it's not enough that this journey is something which is imposed in the organization. You have to see that whether the organization is ready to accept this kind of assessment. So NPD, new product design. So R&D and the marketing. I mean, these are two, departments which are jointly responsible for making sure that the design which you are making is the one which would be not only commercially, technically feasible, but also has to be commercially viable. The R&D or the scientist guy, or for that matter, the NPD guys, they would always say, "Boss, this is the best technology which I could lay hand on to, and with that, I have come out with this new design. Let us implement this design." But he may not know that when that design is implemented and the mass production of that particular kind of a design takes place, whether that would be they would be able to churn out a product, the cost of which would be suitable enough for the market to accept. If the cost itself is going to be 3 or 4x of the cost at which they are presently manufacturing, then there is no point of the commercial viability of that particular design. So therefore, it is a joint exercise in which not only the technical guy, but also the marketing guy, they have to collaborate together, and they have to see that this is basically in Japanese technologies and terms and all that. We all know that how mudas work. Yeah, so we have to see that, okay, this is a waste, that is a waste. So therefore, you have to weed out those wastages and come out with a design in which there is optimization and all that. So you have to have a different mindset in order to define that this is going to be the new design, and therefore this is the one which would be good for the organization, in which there is a value engineering, or as they say, VAVs and all that. There is a cost which would also come down. The new design is something which would give certain added value proposition to the customer, and then on the other side it would lead to certain kind of cost savings, or if at all there is a cost element which is going to increase, then what is that cost element that would increase, and what is the benefit which it would bring to the customer. And then next point, as I discussed briefly 5-10 minutes back, was that on sustainability. So you need to see that so I will talk about in detail about each of these things. I mean, sustainability is essentially that whether you have got the energy savings, or you are able to procure these raw materials and the various resources from the price from the place where the climate change is in your favor. You are not disrupting on all those kind of things. Operational improvement and all this. Yeah. So this slide essentially talked about that what would be the approach of the answers to the questions which would be sent out to various owners in the business, be it the CEO or the CFOs or the marketing or the technology guys. So key building blocks to assess and all that. So I'll just skip to the slide. So model 1. So I've got slides on each of these 9 points. So I would restrict my discussion to only 1 or 2 modules. So first is formulation of business strategy and integration of TCM, which is the owner for this, as I discussed, was the CEO. So what is the purpose of module 1? So need for attaining cost competitiveness is integral part of the strategy. That is something which the CEO of the organization need to understand. And if, as I say now, that when you go to a doctor and if you have explained him well the problem which you have, that means half of the problem is solved. The doctor would give you advice only if he's understood his problem. Similarly, in case of businesses, the ultimate owner of the business, and the owners don't sit in the organization, it's basically the CEO in the professional organizations who are responsible for all the day-to-day functions of the company. And if they are very clear about the need for making in the cost competitiveness, and if they are clear that this is going to become an integral part of the, yeah, there is some echo bite. I hope I'm okay.
Yes, Atul, you are fine. I'll request again everyone to please be on mute.
Okay. So optimize cost structure through the milestones of strategic intervention and all that is what is being talked about. So at many places, the CEO himself need to take the initiatives and understand that these are those areas wherein the strategic cost intervention is required. For example, I would give you an example that if the layout of the shop floor in the organization is such that it is bringing a lot of inefficiencies. There is a material movement which is taking place in a haphazard manner. If there is process 1 and then process 2 and then process 3, if they are not synchronized, then the process or the shop floor layout need to be aligned and need to be changed and all that. So the CEO himself or the herself should know that, okay, this is the necessity. Therefore, because there are a lot of synergies, functional synergies, which would come out of that and the cost saving which can come out of that. So the CEO need to make a blueprint for that cost strategy and the value chain, and clearly define that these are the efficiencies which will come into business. So in this module 1, the questions which these organizations like CIIs, or for that matter any other consultancy firm, they ask. And incidentally, I am also one of the advisors who undertake this kind of exercise for the organization. So first thing which we ask is the detailing and analysis of the cost structure rich enough to drive cost leadership? As I say, you have to review, but the review takes place only after there is a view. If the data itself is not ready, then there is no point of saying that, okay, we are ready. So the first and the foremost thing is that there should be minimum details of the cost structure which is there in innovation, which should be available. And that would be available only if there is a data capturing which is already taking place. Analysis comes later. First is the mapping or the detailing. And as they say that the details, I mean, the devil lies in the details. The more the details, the more comprehensive are the details, the more informed would be the decision which you would be able to take out from there. So the first question which we used to ask and which we are asking the CEOs of the organization is that what is it which you have as a data, whether on the machine on which you are making this this product or a certain kind of a process, whether that data has got.
Oh, sorry, your voice is not coming.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, the voice is there. What's the problem? Yeah.
Okay. So, is it better?
Yeah, Atul, you are okay.
Okay. So here we are asking basically the business owner, who is the chief executive officer of the organization, that do you have the business strategy which reflect the building blocks? I mean, whether there are strategic thinking processes in order to define that, okay, this is the overall business strategy, but then within the overall business strategy, these are the cost elements or the cost structures which are there, and whether
The voice is still not coming. You're not audible at all.
Ashish, looks like there is a problem at your end, because to us it is. Can everybody else? Are you getting the voice clearly?
Yeah, it's loud and clear. So
yeah,
okay.
it's a local problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the CEO or the captain of the ship, they should know that what is the strategic product layout strategy, and whether there are cost elements which are duly mapped, and in turn that whether those strategic product rollouts, they then are meant to be served in the marketplace to those customers who would appreciate those products, and they then are served in those markets where it matters. So for example, in a startup which I was one of the assessors for the startup about say 6-8 months back, somebody said that we are coming out with a product which is essentially these chips. You have these kind of chips which is coming from Lay's or the Bikaneri Walas and different, they sell for 20 rupees, 30 rupees a pack and all that. They said that we want to come out with a product which would sell similar kind of a packet for 70 rupees a packet. So I asked that why the same kind of quantity you would be able to sell at 70 rupees or so. They said that this is their strategy, that they want to position this product on the premium category. And then they said that, okay, there are products which are already selling in the marketplace. The price point is 100 rupees per pack of the same quantity. And then we came to know that these are Pringle chips and all that. They in any case are there in the marketplace, and they sell in the highly fashionable upstreet markets or the malls or the airports, and in certain markets where the high-end customers, they pay for let us say 100 grams of those chips or the same quantity of those chips, for which they are ready to pay 100 rupees, because they know that there is a brand value which is added to that product. There's a quality which is added to that product, and then they are ready to pay that price, because for them, it doesn't matter whether they pay 30 rupees or 100 rupees, so long as they know that the brand is such which gives them the satisfaction. So they said that we want to make this product reach out to those masses which we are targeting. So they said that we are not looking at the bottom end of the pyramid of the market, or we are not looking at the top end of the market, where in any case these Pringle chips and those things they sell. We would be somewhere in the middle and all that, and they've been able to succeed in the marketplace. So they clearly defined at the ownership level, at the business level, through their owners or the CEO, that this is going to be their business strategy. They would like to only serve this segment of the organization, and these are the customers to whom they would like to sell. And therefore, they said that the cost of doing the business in order to serve that segment would be this much. And they then define their processes and all that in line with that strategy. There are numerous examples of such kind, so we can all talk about that. So in continuation of the module 1, detailed exercise of the questionnaire, for the business strategy based on differentiation, whether the details analysis of the cost structure is tailor-made. So again, you have to differentiate that whether the cost elements which you have, do you have a tailor-made kind of a cost structure, or is it something which is measured in a scientific manner? You know, sometimes one would say the cost of consumption of power or the gas, everybody knows that the cost of gas, the PNG gas or the CNG gas, that has already crossed 3 times, 4 times, or 5 times in Europe. In India, we are no exception. So we have been seeing that in many organizations, the cost of the raw material is XYZ, and then the cost of the energy is, let us say, MN. Now, when we came to the cost of this element of the energy and all that, or the cost of gas is something which is going through the roof, then all of a sudden we went to the customer and said, boss, we cannot sustain this kind of cost pressure. So let us revisit the total bill of material and take these costs also into the bill of material. But before we could go over there, we suggested to the owners that, okay, I mean, this is where you are going wrong. Therefore, you have to revise your cost elements and all that. It's important that you should have the processes in place in order to measure those costs. So the coordinates of measurement should be in place in the cost management architecture which is laid down in the organization. Again, we asked the CEO, have you benchmarked the cost structure with the competitor? I mean, gone are those days when one would say कि बस मेरी तो ये cost है, इस cost से नीचे मैं काम कर ही नहीं सकता, ये cost जो है आगे, if the minimum wages are increasing, my cost of labor is increasing. If the interest rates are increasing, my cost of doing the business in any case is increasing. Therefore, my cost per unit is XYZ. It is no longer like that. There is always a competition, and you have to benchmark that who is your biggest competitor and who is and how you are able to benchmark your own cost with the best available in the marketplace. And your benchmarks need not to be set with the competitor which is there in the next state in which you are operating or in the country. It may be worldwide. Yeah. So there are numerous examples where we have seen that businesses have got disrupted just because that they could not compete the prices with the competitors. So as the CEO, they need to understand that how important it is to measure this cost and benchmark it. And what are the strategies adopted for closing the gap with the competitors? For example, if the rejection levels is XYZ in your business, but in Europe, there are machines which are fully automated and all that. The rejection levels are 1/3 or 1/4 of what you are having. Then you better have those technologies in place so that you are able to bring down the rejection levels and you are able to price your product close to the prices at which the competition is selling. So Rajiv, these are the questions which are there, and there are a number of questions. So I will just take another 1 or 2 questions before we.
Yeah. I think let's make it more interactive. Let people ask questions.
Yeah. So what we will do is that, there is a series of discussions which can go on the same TCM subject itself. Maybe we will take one by one module in our subsequent discussions. So I will take another 2 questions here in module 1. So we see that what are the deployment of cost strategies made as a cascading exercise. Again, we have to just not only see that these systems are in place, but we have to see that whether they are cascaded into the next level of the organization. Next means next below level of the organization. It's not enough that you know it. It is equally important that the people to whom you are delegating, they also understand the implication of these processes. And whether this cascading takes place through the budgets, AOPs, or other mechanisms. And then does the deployment framework of cost strategy enable the flagging of decision making? Yeah, so this is another important point. At the end of the day, all these exercises which you are doing, you should be able to take some tangible decision after this exercise is over. For example, you may come to a conclusion that the product which you are manufacturing at XYZ price is no longer competitive in the marketplace. So you may like to decide that let's give it on a job work basis to an outsider. Let's get it manufactured from a guy who is next door, because he may be able to convert the raw material into the finished goods for you and would like to do the job work for you and sell it to you as a finished product, where his cost may be much different or lower than the cost which you are incurring. So you can do all these things only if you have got the details in place. So stuff like that. So what I would do, Rajiv, is that we, in our next discussion, after having set the ball rolling or put the things or the context in place in our second round of interactions, I would run through each of this module in one by one of these 9 modules, so that this then becomes clear to all the participants that this is what I'm talking about, and we accordingly can move ahead from there.
Sure, definitely. So any questions so far, whatever Atul has covered on total quality cost management?
Today, essentially, one message which I wanted to give out is that the cost is something which is very, very important. Therefore, mapping of the cost and the total cost management. When I talk about total cost management, it is not only the cost which you make in your cost sheet in your finance and account department, but the cost which is understood by all the functions and all the business process owners in the organization, be it the production or the R&D or the marketing or the purchase or the quality department or the design department. So it is an engagement of all the functionaries or the functional heads of the organization who need to be brought in interaction with the people who work on this project, so that it becomes a really engaging kind of a holistic exercise. So I wanted to just convey that this is a very important exercise which a lot of organizations they already have undertaken, and there are a number of organizations which already are taking on these kind of initiatives, even after having achieved the level of fifth level of maturity and all that, because this is a time when you not only need to improve upon what you have been doing in the past, but also this would give you a chance to sustain your business.
Fine. Ajish, you have any question?
Yeah. Actually, the main point that was brought up is that lean model tried to reduce the cost instead of increasing the price. Am I correct?
Yeah, broadly you are right, but then it's easier to say those things. See, what is happening today is that the price of the product you may not be able to increase or define in the marketplace. Competition is becoming so hot. Today we see that the Chinese companies, they are lying on the low ebb because China in any case is going through a lot of political upheavals within the country, and the Politburo elections and all those kind of things, they are going to take place in the next month or so. But what we are hearing as a professional is that we may go into a situation where there may be a lot of competition which would come from the Chinese players who have set up their manufacturing bases through their extended arms into Vietnam, Indonesia, South Africa, Europe, or many other countries. So the competition for your business may come all of a sudden from a direction which you may not even be aware of. Therefore, it is very important to understand that what is it at which you are doing the business, what is the cost at which you are doing the business, and what is the cost of conversion of, if there is a XYZ price at which you are selling, then there is a certain price which is attached to make that product available in the marketplace. So the cost of manufacturing that product or delivering that services, that various cost elements which are there, they may not be the same. They all of a sudden may change. Like the cost of energy has changed, the cost of commodities we have seen in the last 2 years that changed dramatically, and now that the cost of commodities is corrected. So you have to read all these kind of discussions which we are having in conjunction with what is happening in the worldwide space, so far as the global supply chains or the new geopolitical orders or the currency wars which is taking place, so that you only then would be able to understand that market may not be there in the same way in which it is at present.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Could you also just touch upon those 5 in the pyramid, those 5 points once again?
Yeah. So this is the level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 5 levels. So level 1 is the one which I was talking about in my discussions in today's session. So it is the measurement. So how do you measure these costs? See, at the first starting point in any startup journey, or for that matter, early stage of your business, you need to identify that whatever, even if you are spending a time in the organization as a startup founder, so there is a time value of money which you are spending. So you need to understand that what is the resource which you are deploying and what is the cost of deployment of those resource, and sometimes we do not recognize that what is the opportunity loss which we are having if we, for example, for the sake of discussion, if we say that if not this business, then what other business we would have done, and what is the cost of, what is the opportunity cost which we are going to have. So first level of maturity in the organization on the cost side is that the measurements. You need to have those metrics, those metrics or those kind of identifications of the measurements which should be in place. And then you, in the next year or so, take it to the next level, take it to the management level, send the performance metrics and the benchmarkings. Then you go into the analytical tools. You have got the business analytics or the BI and all that, so business intelligence. But then before going into that, analysis is something which would come. And then you have to see that whether you are really a viable value proposition which you are throwing to the customers and all that. And if you are efficient in the marketplace, then you reach at the topmost level, which is level 5, that you have built up a business which is resilient. I visited an organization about year back or year and a half back, which was there in Gujarat. And I was surprised that the kind of TCM which that organization was having, they were doing about 200 crore top line from a small business factory which they were having near to the airport in Ahmedabad. And the guys there, or the plant head, or for that matter, the senior people there, they exhibited to us that how efficiently they have deployed all these different levels of cost maturities in the organization, such that they are able to sustain that business on a continuous level. And they have got that cost leadership and all that. And the competition in their business was coming from China. So they not only were able to fend off the competition from China in their business, but was able to make a market for themselves into the in India. And they continue to live, and they continue to strive, and they continue to grow. But the very fact that they are able to sustain and grow is because that they have been able to